Thank you very much for joining us today this morning, and we will be resuming our Yalla Salesforce growth journey. So we'll resume walking through different modules in Yalla Salesforce Trail Mix, and we will put the Yalla Salesforce Trail Mix on the chat and on the YouTube when we publish the video if you don't have it. What we are planning to do today, we will continue our journey with formulas and validations. We'll dig deep into why formulas and why we need all of these validations happening. We kept saying that last time that we have back end and we have front end, and we said that the formula, we don't need to persist this data. So let's dig deep into it. And if you have any questions anytime, please feel free to just raise your hand and let's do it. All right, so use formula fields. All right, so last time we were talking about the back end, and we said that we can create all of these custom fields, and one of the types was formula field. And we mentioned last time it's exactly like Excel sheet. So in Excel sheet, we don't need to have like a cell for every value, and we need to persist the data. So if I have here the Excel sheet, I can have fields which, like price, I have it's $50, and I need to do a discount for 10%. But if I need to calculate this discount amount, I don't need to do the math in my head and then add it myself. But I can easily say, let's multiply this value and do like this guy, open bracket, and put this guy divided by 100 and do all of that. So I can say the discount amount is this. So this is a formula. And if I change the input, if I decided to change the discount, I can see that the result is already calculated for me. So this is the beauty of the formula. The formula in Salesforce is read-only. So we will not be able to go to that field in the UI, like the discount, which we have it in the UI, and change the value. It's read-only. Also, it's very important to know about the formula field that we can refer to another objects. So we learned it last session as well, that we can relate objects to each other. So if I have an account, and if I have contact, and I have account ID 1, and I have my account in here, and this account number is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I have a contact in here which has a relationship with that account by saying contact number 1, my contact, and this contact is related to this specific account. I can easily say while I'm in the contact, rather than, if I need to know the account number, rather than going to the account and get this value and persist it in a field, I can get into the parent related object and grab any value that we are interested in. So I can have a formula saying this is equal this specific number. Accordingly, if I change the account number tomorrow to be 888, automatically, this is going to be reflected. So let's go through the module, but this is in a nutshell. The same, everyone is familiar with Excel. That's why we started our journey from Excel, but it will be exactly the same thing in Salesforce. Any questions so far? Sounds perfect. All right, so we have a lot of data in the organization. Your user need to access and understand this data at a glance without doing a bunch of calculations. So we don't need to do this calculation every time. We don't need to persist it in the back end and do any automation that when something gets changed, do something. We need to get the magic of the formula field. It's a powerful tool that gives the control of how your data is displayed. So if you have two numeric fields on a record and you just need to divide them to get a percentage, or you need to calculate the discount as we just did, or you need to have a hyperlink on a record page, how can we achieve that? We can easily achieve that by using formula fields. Or in this example, we have in the opportunity and we have the close date, and we need to calculate how far is this close date from today's date. We can do subtraction between two dates and calculate how many days to close. All right. Once we create this formula field, we can have it in a list view. We can have it in a record page, we can have it in a report. And this is what we're gonna do together going through this module. All right. So when you start with simple, when you start writing those formula fields and do the calculation, sometime this formula starts to expand, having ands and ors, and start to be very complicated. So start simple and start to evolve in order to get into those more complex scenarios. And we will be familiar now with the interface to go through all of these different functions and so on. All right. Now it's time to put it in action. Let's create those formula fields. And the first step that we need to launch our playground. So either to scroll all the way down to launch your playground, or the other way that we learned before, that I can go in here, hands-on orgs, and this will show you all the orgs that connected to your Trailhead account, and I can hit launch in here. All right, so let me, to make my life easier, I will have this in another screen so we can easily navigate things. All right, so we will be calculating this days to close. So I need to go to the opportunity, create a new field, and it's gonna be a formula field, and we're gonna name it days to close. So setup, as we mentioned before, any object customization, I'm gonna start from the setup, object manager, opportunity. So what we need to do, and then from fields and relationships, we're gonna navigate to create a new field. So that means I will be creating a new custom field. This is not a standard field available from Salesforce, so I will be creating a custom. And what we are talking about is the formula field. Formula field will require you to provide the field label, accordingly the API name, and we discussed what is the API name last time. This is the back end field that it will be used while you are querying database. Salesforce, and it is going to communicate with the back end database, but the API is it has to be unique across the object. And then you will need to provide the data type for it. So days to close should be a number in order to do this math. But let's get back in here and see what they are saying. So select number, radio button, because we will be subtracting 2 dates from each other, and then we will hit next. So if you have a Trailhead account, let's follow. If you didn't do this badge, let's do it together, and we will be learning and earning these points and badge by the end of this session. All right, let's get familiar with this interface. First, giving you an example that this is what you will be writing in here, but you have a simple formula and you have advanced formula. Simple formula doesn't have much. So if you need to deal with functions and so on, you will not have here much of support within the simple formula. And the Salesforce recommendation also move to the advanced formula. Advanced formula will give you much more comparing to the simple formula. It will allow you to insert fields. So we are already in the opportunity. And we mentioned while we were in the Excel sheet, we can either bring fields from the current object, or we can bring from any parent object. So when I click insert field, it's gonna show me, all right, opportunity is related to the account. Then I can navigate into the account and get the account number. Same thing with what we did in the Excel sheet from the content. It also allows me to bring any field from the same object, which is the opportunity. So what we are looking for is the close date. So we are looking for the close date, and then we will put the subtract, and then we will need to do it subtract from today's date. So either you can do subtract, or if you are still new and you want to see what are the art of possible in here within the operator. So if we are talking about numbers, that means we'll go for add, subtract, multiply, and so on. But if we are going for a formula, which is type text, probably you might need something like concatenate. You need to concatenate 2 strings together. But in here, we are doing subtract. It's going to end up with the same minus. And then we have a lot of functions in here. So we need to get today's date. And in order to have today's date dynamic, Because if I put today's date, which is 10th of October, it will be always subtracting it from October 10th. But I need to have it dynamic. And in order to have it dynamic, we will be introducing the functions. Functions, in general, some of them accept certain parameters, and some of them just you need the function. So today, if I went to today, you will find in here, it just returned the current date. So it will be always dynamic, and it will return today's date. But with other functions like minute will need an expression. And if you are not familiar with this, what expression means, you have this help function, and this will open for me a new window telling me what will be the expected expression. So it's expecting time value in that format. And in that scenario, since I'm talking about minute, if I pass this specific parameter, which is the expression, it's gonna return for me 30. So if you are looking for a specific function and you are not sure which function to use and what are the parameters and what it will return for me, help on this function would be very handy tool to get what you are looking for. Any questions so far?
Nope.
Perfect. Thank you very much. All right. So we will proceed with the today. And all what I'm going to do, I will insert. And then I need to make sure that this can be one line and it can be 30 lines in here. So in order to make sure that I'm still okay with the syntax and I didn't put any extra bracket in here or I didn't add anything, so I need to check syntax. If it's green, that means we are all good. But if I have something like that, I added by mistake accidentally because this is gonna grow, we might have something like that. So it will tell me, no, be careful. So it's just part of while you are building those complex formulas, before you start to evolve, make sure that frequently you are checking the syntax so it will be easy to capture it early. Otherwise, you will need to go through this big exercise to find out where is this extra comma or this is extra bracket. All right, so let's go back. We are subtracting, we are checking the syntax, and then we are clicking next to accept everything. We mentioned before that it's good because sometimes with more complex projects, things we will start having a lot of formulas and it might be confusing to identify. So it's always a best practice to add as a description to any formula. So this is days to close the opportunity. All right, so treat blank fields as 0, and let's go for the next page. We will be discussing the profiles later on, but as we mentioned, high level, this is what you can do in the platform, and we will need this field to be accessible for everybody for now, so I'll make it visible for everyone, and we will have another session talking in details what are the profiles. Same thing, we didn't cover the page layouts or the UI, the front end part of the platform. We are still focusing on the back end, but for now, I will add it for everyone. And I will hit save. Now, if I search for this specific formula, you will be able to see it. And as we mentioned last time, __C means it's custom field. Perfect. Now, they want to add it to reports. We added already into the page layout. So let's jump to the opportunity. So this is an opportunity, and I will create a new opportunity. And I will need to set the close date to be next week. And my opportunity, let's see it in action, and all what I need to put the stage and hit save. And within the details, I will have days to close is automatically calculated. If I change it this close date as we were referring to, and we put it, now it's just do the math and calculate it for myself. They are referring as well into the reports. So if I went to reports and I created a new report, we will have another sessions for the reporting in the future. I will say I need to do on opportunities. So I will do this, and I will say on opportunities, let's start a new report. And when I do that, I will need to add this close, days to close. So days to close, now add it to my field. Let me easily drag it to on the top, and I will say update preview automatically, which will make this to be visible, and it's exactly the same number that we were able to see. Can be used in reports, can be used in list of views, it can be used in the lightning page as we saw it. Any questions so far?
No, I'm good.
Thank you. All right. So we followed all of these instructions, we updated, we added to the report, we can see it. Now let's go back to the next subject, which is let's debug. We were just saying that we will need to check the syntax because we might be doing a very small mistakes or missing something, which we will need to be troubleshooting this. So this check syntax will give me different error messages when I do different papers. So if I am using function like length, and this will determine what is the length for this specific value for the name. And if I missed here, end of the bracket, it will give me syntax error missing this one. But you might be confused with this error message because it will give you exactly the same error message if you are missing a comma. So right is telling take the first three letters from this specific string that we are passing into the parameter. And if we are missing the comma, which differentiates between the two parameters that this specific function is expecting, it will give me exactly the same error. What else this check syntax can bring to me? If I am giving length, length is a character or a text function. So it's expecting in here a text. And in order to have it as text, you need to put those double quotes. So if I am passing in here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 without double quotes, it's expecting that this is number, not text. So it's telling in here incorrect parameter, just put as expecting text, but you are sending a number, so you need to add those double quotes. Absolute is expecting one parameter to give a number and give the response. But if you are passing two parameters, it will tell you that you are passing two parameters and the expectation is to have one parameter. If you remember that when we were in the opportunity object, and I will discard this guy, and I will say, yeah, the other way, rather than to create a new formula or go to the object manager, rather than going to setup object manager, you can go from here, saying setup, and say edit object. Edit object would easily navigate you to the same setup object manager, search for opportunity, and so on. So I start, if I'm already in the page for opportunity or in the tab of the opportunity, I can easily navigate to the object manager from there, and then easily I can go in here. If you remember, when we were creating the formula, it's required to specify what is the data type. So if I said text and I'm doing subtraction, it will complain. So it will complain like that. If I'm saying today and the today return the data type is date and I passed it as a number, it will say no. You need to have it as a date in order to call this specific function, which will return for you a date. Field does not exist. If I'm in opportunity and there is nothing called account number and I mentioned the account number, it will say you don't have this field. Length is expecting a string, but we discussed in here, if I'm sending a number, it will complain, and if I'm sending a text without those double quotes, it will expect that this is a field name, and if hello is not a field name, it will complain because there is no field. So always remember either to pass a valid field name or put it in double quotes, so the function will understand that you are passing a text in here, not a field. Finally, the fake function, if you are referring to a function that is not exist, not on this right-hand side where we were there, just remember that you will need to use this to make your life easy or search for those functions as we just discussed. All right. Next, we will need what else this formula can do for us. The formula can do for us hyperlink. So hyperlink is a function where I can pass a URL and I can put what will be visible to the user for that specific link. And when they click it, it will be navigating into this website. I can do some discounts with rounds and subtract. I can have a checkbox. Checkbox means I need to flag this opportunity as a big opportunity. So how can I say this opportunity is big or not big? I need to use a logical function. One of the logical functions, which we will be discussing it more in the validation rules by the end of this module, logical function will always return true or false. So if it's true, the checkbox will say yes. If the answer is false, it will be false. It will not be ticked. So the formula is a checkbox formula that determines whether a particular opportunity is big. And here we are checking that the parent account, number of employees greater than 1,000, and amount is greater than 10 grand. Accordingly, if those two conditions are satisfied, that means it's true. Accordingly, it will automatically. So if the account number of employees changes, it's a different object, and it changes to be 500, this opportunity will reevaluate this checkbox and say, all right, it's no longer big opportunity. And this is one of the things that we want to highlight, that one of the features for formula fields, we said it's read-only. We said it's real time. Whenever you change the value, it will be reflecting the most recent calculation. The third important thing, it will not derive automation. We will be discussing later on what are the different offerings from Salesforce for automation, like flows, like Apex, and so on, and triggers. But for now, remember that formula fields value on its own will not trigger an automation. What I mean by that, if I am saying this opportunity, if it's big, do something. If it's not big, do something else. So, and I went to the account and I changed number of employees, which made this to move its value from true to false. I cannot say let's have something to happen based on the big flag itself. I will need to do those automations based on the source fields, based on the inputs, but not based on the output. Accordingly, if I want to do this automation, I will have to track it based on the amount change or the account number of employees change, but not based on the big formula field. Any questions?
So you mean it like in a record triggered flow, I can't
Yes.
use that field, the formula field. I'd
Yes.
have to use the source field.
Exactly. Okay. Because in the record trigger flow, it will be waiting for a change on a database. And having big value change, there is no database representation for that field. Accordingly, if you need to trigger based on a database change, it has to be based on the fields that are stored physically in the database, which are the source fields, not the formula fields.
Got it.
Sounds perfect. All right, so those are the three summary or features for the formula field that making it different than any other standard data type. It's read-only. It will be calculated in real time. It cannot derive on its own the automation, and we will need to use the source fields in order to do such record trigger flow or Apex triggers. All right, let's go for the challenge. They are asking us in here to go to the contract object, create a formula called the days remaining. So let's do that. So I'll go in here, object manager, and I'll go for the contract. And within the contract, I'll go for fields and relationship, say new. And within here, I will be creating a formula. The name for the formula is days remaining. And the days remaining, it has to be a number. So let's go to a number. And the formula field that they are looking for calculate the number of days between the contract end date and today. So I'll do exactly what we did for the close date. So in here, contract, is it within this object or it's related? No, it's within this object. So if I navigate it down there, I should be able to see contract in the dates. I can see the start date. Contract, yes, here we go. Contract end date, and I will be inserting. And in order to make it, so end date will return for me a date, which is the end date, but I need to subtract it from today. So date and time, navigate to today, and from today, I'll insert this guy. Again, it's gonna return for me a date, and since I'm using arithmetic operation in here, accordingly, the output will match the number in here. So I will hit next, and I will make it visible for everybody, and I will hit save. Now I have this contract end date and days remaining. So if I search for days remaining in here, now I have this formula. So let's check this challenge and earn the 500 points. And if you didn't do this badge, let's do it. Woohoo! We made those 500 points for this specific unit. So far, so good. Any questions?
No, I'm good.
Perfect. All right. Next topic will be the roll-up summary. Roll-up summary is another auto-magical calculation that will happen by Salesforce. So you don't need to worry about doing the math or the automation yourself. And the roll-up summary, as we mentioned before, it's one of the features for master detail relationship. So if you have a lookup relationship between the parent and child, it will roll-up summary will not be available for you to do this. But roll-up summary will be always available in the master detail. And what it does in a nutshell, that it will calculate something on the parent based on the records on the child. You can do count how many records are related to me. You can do submission. You can do minimum. You can do maximum. It will be visible in the parent based on all of these children, knowing that the relationship is master detail. With some exceptions in here for the master detail thing, because for standard objects like account and opportunity, if we went in there and we went to the object manager and we went to the opportunity, and within field and relationship, and I said, let's create a new roll-up summary. Oh, no, not actually. I wanted to just show the relationship. You will find that the relationship between the account and opportunity is lookup. But this is because they are standard objects. So they didn't look up, but they still enabled having the roll-up summary available. But in real life, if you have custom object, part of this org or your implementation, and you have another lookup, which is custom object as well, you will not be able to roll up summary for the lookup relationship, but you will be always able to do it for only master detail. All right, so let's go through this. While formula field calculate value using fields within a single record, roll-up summary field calculate values from set of related records. So we mentioned in the formula field, I can do it within the same record or a parent, but here it's different. I'm doing the math based on child records, which is not a feature of the formula fields. You create a roll-up summary field that automatically display a value on a master record based on a value in the details records. The detail record must be directly related through only master detail relationship. You can perform different types of calculations. As we mentioned, you can do the count of related records. You can do some minimum, maximum value. A custom account. So you might want a custom account field that calculates the total of all related pending opportunities. A custom order field that sum unit prices of products. All right. So this is the master detail. It's just a field on the parent record, which will do some math on the related record. So if I'm in that scenario and I did this roll-up summary to be the count of opportunities, it's gonna show me 2. If I'm saying sum of opportunities, it's gonna sum those amounts together. If I set the minimum close date, it will return for me the 2015, not the 2017, and so on. Otherwise, if you have a lookup and you really need to do it, that means you need to do all of these automations for record trigger flow or an apex. If something changes on the child, promote it up to the parent. That's why this roll-up summary is a great feature from Salesforce, but you need to keep in mind that it has to be a master detail relationship. We covered all of that. Hey, Sharp, good to see you. Thank you very much for joining.
Hey.
We are discussing the roll-up summary, part of formulas and validation. So if you didn't do this badge, open your Trailhead and let's do it together so you can earn this badge and all of these points. All right, so creating the summary field, we'll go to now, let's put it in action and see how this is gonna work. So I'll go to the object manager and do go for the account, and from fields and relationship, we'll create a new sum of opportunities. As we mentioned, that the opportunity, since it's standard, so it violates this master detail guiding principle for the roll-up summary, but let's do it. So I'll go for object manager. And as we mentioned that when we create a roll-up summary, we create it on the master, and it's gonna calculate from all the children. So I'll go to the account, and from the account, I'll go for fields and relationships, and I will go for new roll-up summary. And I will say in here, this is what I want to calculate, sum of opportunities. Next. Here, it will ask me which object, and it's gonna give me in here, because it's account, so it's doing its own exceptions, for those standard objects, entitlements, associated locations, opportunities. But if you have any custom object that will be related to the account as master detail, it will be visible in here in that list as well. For now, let's go for opportunities, and which operation you need to do it, we will need to do sum. And then the next question, sum of what? So sum of what? I will go back in here, we need to do sum of the amounts. So I'll go for field to aggregate, I'll go for sum of the amount, and you have the option in here to do sum for all, or you can specify only records meeting certain criteria. So I can say, no, only if the amount is greater than 10,000, I will need to do this. So you have the option to, even when you are doing this roll-up summary, to do it across all, or you can have specify your own conditions in here in order to do the math the way you want as per the business use case. For now, we'll do all records. Next, I'll make it visible. Next, and I will do save. Fantastic. So another one, we mentioned that we can have as well the date of first opportunity created. In that case, first opportunity created, that means I will need to do this guy, roll up summary, first opportunity. And next, that means now first I'm doing on the opportunity object. First means it's a minimum, and I need to have it created date. So minimum, the first created date for the opportunities related to this specific account. So this another field we did it. So all of that is declarative with using the mouse without the need to write any code, and Salesforce gonna do the magic for you automatically. Any questions?
Nope.
Perfect. The next one is the same idea, that I am on the opportunity. I have a related object called the opportunity product, and I need to get the total for all of these products. So it's the same idea. I will go for the opportunity and get the opportunity product as the object part of my concern, and then it will do the magic for me. And in here, keep repeating the same thing. All right. So if I went in here into the account and I want to navigate to one of the accounts, hopefully this guy has an opportunity. and sum of opportunities 235. So if I went in there, you will find one opportunity. If I added a new opportunity and I said the amount is 15 grand and my opportunity, and I put the close date to be 17, and I put the stage is qualification. Now I can say, yeah, show it only for the closed one opportunities, not blindly. Accordingly, I'll need to go to the filter that we were discussing and adding where stage equals specific stage. Accordingly, it will be either considered or not considered part of the math. But now I am expecting, if I went to the details, it should be summing both opportunities. Now it's 215, it's to 235 plus first opportunity. I have one created, both of them actually created in October 20 today, because I just did this environment, but the timestamp would be different. So again, it's gonna prioritize the one created at 544 over the one I just created 845. All right. If no questions, let's go for the hands-on challenge. Create a roll-up summary. Add a custom field on a standard account object to provide a roll-up summary for total expected revenue for the opportunities. The name will be potential value. I'll go in here. Again, this is a shortcut for editing this object. So edit object. I will need field and relationship. I need to create a new one. And it is going to be a roll-up summary. And it is based on this is the name of the field. Salesforce is, and Trailhead is very picky, so just copy and paste to be safe. And then summarize object. I will go for the opportunities, and within the opportunities, I need to do, if you have advanced currency, create a roll-up summary field on account object, potential value, calculate the total. That means it's sum. Expected revenue. This is the name of the field. And they're going to be visible for all records. They didn't specify any filters in here. Visible. Next. Save. And let's validate that we did the right thing. Any questions so far? So we covered the formula with its own characteristics, which we summarized as read-only, real-time, cannot trigger. We made it, cannot trigger automation. Roll-up summary, it's a specific feature for master detail relationship, which will do some math on the details to be visible on the master records. Awesome. Our last topic today, if there is no questions, we will go for validation rules. Validation rules, so there are many ways in Salesforce to make sure that the values that the user will be entering in the UI is satisfying certain conditions. We will be discussing today the declarative way of doing it through a database check. We mentioned that there is UI checks we can do, and there is back-end or database checks that we can achieve as well. So validation rule is a database validation. That means when I say database validation, means it will only happen when I hit save. The save will try to go to the database and store it, and it will check whether am I satisfying those conditions or not. And if I'm satisfying the condition, it will say, yeah, you cannot do that. Or if I'm not satisfying, that means it's good. It's matching your business criteria. And when we are saying from business perspective, if I know that the SIN number should be like 6 digits accordingly, or 8 digits, whatever, I can specify that this format for this specific field, it has to be 8 digits and it has to be a number without letters. So if I'm putting ABC, it will complain and giving you an error message. This is the whole reason behind the validation rule, to make sure data quality is meeting your acceptance criteria for this specific field. Validation rule, verify that the data entered by the user meets the standard you specified before you can save it. A validation rule can contain a formula or expression that evaluate the data. And it's exactly like the checkbox which we were discussing right now in the formula. It has to be evaluated by true or false. So the result, it has to be a logical operation, and you need at the end having an answer from this validation rule formula to say yes or no. If yes, that means it's a problem. It's gonna show you the error message. If it's false, that means your input is correct. So evaluate the data into one or more fields and return a value of true or false. It's exactly like the same interface we used for the formula field. So you'll have access to all the functions and the fields and the parent objects and so on. So when validation rule return a true, that confirms the data entered by the user contain an invalid value. So usually true is positive, but here true is negative. So if it's a true, means it's an incorrect value. Validation rules can also include error message to display to the user, and you can specify that this error message either visible on the field level or it's on the top of the screen. So validation rule can also include error message to display to user when they enter invalid value based on specific criteria. Using these rules effectively contribute to the data quality. All right, let's go and create our first validation rule. It's the same thing from the object manager, but rather than going to fields, we'll go to the validation rules. In here, we want to guarantee that the account number is 8 characters. So I'm checking, we discussed that we have a function called length. It will take a field name and it will check if the length for the account number not equal 8, that means it's a problem. So if I entered 4, so length not equal 8, that means if I entered 4, it's a problem. If I entered exactly 8, that means I'm good. All right. So let's go and create it. Account. Now, within this left-hand side, you have at the very end validation rules. I will go create a new validation rule. The name for it is this. I will put the rule name and make sure it's active if you need to enforce it. And I will be inserting the field. So what do I need to check? I need to go for the text, and I am checking the length, and I'll insert this, and it will accept text. So either, as we mentioned, to enter it using this double quotes, or I can insert a field saying the account number, since it's text, length not equal 8. Check syntax. So if it's not equal 8, show me the error message. What will be the error message? Account number must be 8 characters long, and I will be making it available on, since I'm checking the account number. So let's have it on the field of account number and hit save. Now I created this account number validation rule. When I enter 1, 2, 3, 4, it will say account must be 8 characters long. So let's go for account. As we mentioned last time, we can, rather than going in here and write, just a reminder that the URL doing a lot of magic for us. So if I, in the URL, if I have an account number, it's 18 character length. So if you have this, you can just put it on the URL, but we learned last session that if I just put every object has the first 3 characters, uniquely identifying this specific object. So if I put 001, it will automatically navigate me to the accounts. If I put 003, it will go to the contact options. So while you are playing more with the platform, you will find your own shortcuts that will make your life easier rather than doing too many clicks. So in here, Burlington, if even I went to the details and I decided to edit and say, no, make it 66, and I try to do save, it will show for me. So it will be applied to a new account, or even if you are doing edit for an existing, it will not complain for any data that created before you create this validation rule. So, but you will enforce the user moving forward if they are creating a new account or they are editing an existing account, they will be stuck with this. That means they will need to fix it on their own. Make sure if you have integration, this is a little bit advanced. If you are migrating data or you are integrating data from different system and you have account numbers that are not satisfying this formula for the validation rule, you will have two approaches. Either just let it go by deactivating this validation rule, migrate the data, and now the user will be stuck while they are touching this account for any other field. They have to fix the data, or it's better to do some data cleansing, fix the data before, and then push it to the system. So the user will have their life easier rather than going and fix those account numbers. And then remember, if you deactivate it after you do this migration, to activate it back. Any questions?
Oh,
Thank you. All right. Example for validation rules. What else this can do for us? I can go more complex than just not equally. So I have a function called isNumber, and I have a function called isBlank. And I will be using operators like and not. What and not means, so we learn back, if you have computer science background and you learn about logic operators and so on. So we used to learn that in computer science, saying this is that logical operator, and or a not. And it's like doing, for me, in order to remember it easy, it's like a multiplication, and or it's like addition. So if I'm saying false and false, it's 0. So false and false is false. False and true is false. It's like multiplying them together. False and true is still false. The only way that you will get a true return when both of them are true. So true, true is true. For the or, it's like addition. False and false, or 0 and 0 is 0. 1 and 0 is 1. That means it's true. So true, false, or false, true means it's true, 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 true. Not is the opposite. If I am passing 0 or true, which is the 1, return for me false. If it's false, return for me true. So why this is helpful? Because sometime, again, we started with very simple logic, and then this is gonna end up with very big monster, ands and ors and so on. And if you need to track it down and try to put true, 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 false, and with the ands and ors and so on, you need to at least be able to do how the end result. So, but in here we are saying if both of them are true, this is the only way to get true from and. But if any of them is true, the or will return for you the true. All right. So in here we are using and not. And as we mentioned before, that for the formula field, we need to say if the return for this formula is true, this is where we're gonna show the error message. So I'm here in saying it shouldn't. If it's not blank and it's not number, complain. But that means if it's a blank, do not complain. If it's a blank and number, do not complain. So that means I'm enforcing the user to enter, either to not enter the value or enter the value with a valid number. Anything else, it will say account number is not a numeric. And if we did this true and false, you will see is blank true, not making it false. This one is a number, is true, making it false. False and false is false. So that means it will be accepted because the end result is false. But if the account number true, true, and both of them are true, so it's not a number and not a blank, that means it's gonna be evaluated as 1, and 1 means it's 1, and means 1 means it's true, so it will be complete. I hope it's clear. If any question, please let me know. Sounds perfect. And the error location for this one is account number. And it's exactly like what we did. So I will go in here into the account, edit object, and within edit object, I'll go for the, within the edit object, I'll go for validation rule, and I'll create a new. And I will say must number, and within in here, I'll put this formula, and I can construct it using in here logical, and I'll find the and insert it and so on. And then I'll check the syntax and show the error message account should be true. Should be number. Perfect. So I created another validation rule. Moving on, Date must be in a current year, so year of my date and year of today. If they are not matching, this is a problem because I need to enforce the user to enter a year within the current year. Number, range validation. I want to make sure that if the range is greater than 20 brands, that means that those are subtracted together greater than 20,000. That means it's an error, so show this error message. Website extensions, so I will be checking and all of these websites with the extension at the very end that it's matching my formula, and if it's outside this range, it will give me the website must have one of those extensions. And we can go more and more in the expressions for those validation rules. In a nutshell, it's mainly to guarantee that the user input is satisfying certain condition, and if the return of, and it has to be a true or false return from your function. And once you have a true, that means you will have an error message. If it's false, so that means we are good. Let's do quickly this exercise, and we will wrap it up for today. So I need in here, create a validation rule. This is the rule name. Contact must be an account zip code, and use the AND operator. So create a validation rule that display an error message that prevents a user from creating or updating a contact for an account if a contact and account have different zip code. All right, so I will need to go now into the contact because I need to validate that the contact is matching this contact. Validation rules, I will be creating a new validation rule, and this is the name of the validation rule. And I will be making sure that first, the contact is associated with the account ID. So I have, and I will be even to, or let's do it ourselves. And so it's two conditions. First, if I have an account, so that means it's not, I will go for the logical, not, I am assuming it's in here, and the not is, I will be using another function called is blank, and I will be using what is not blank, the account ID. And if it's not blank, I want to make sure that the account insert field, account shipping postal code. So I'll go in here, shipping postal code. It has to be matching the contact. Insert for the contact mailing postal code. Mailing postal code. And I will insert. So I'm saying if it's not blank, and if the shipping postal code is not matching the mailing postal code for the contact, show me this error message. So what is the error message? You define the two condition, enter an error message. So I'll just put in here, it should be matching the related account. And I will be showing it on the field, which is the mailing postal code. And I will hit save. Let's validate. We made it. Thank you very much. So if there is no questions, we covered the formula fields, we covered the validation rules, we covered the roll-up summary, and we earned this fancy badge with 1,500 points. Thank you very much for joining.